You're watching TVC Breakfast. The presidency has responded to former President Olusegun Obasanjo's criticism of President Bola Tinubu's administration, accusing him of hypocrisy and poor governance during his own tenure. Presidential spokesman Bayo Onanuga described Obasanjo as unfit to critique Nigeria's leadership, highlighting the misdeeds from his time as both the military leader and president. He urged that Obasanjo has taken self-righteousness too far. During the Chinua Achebe Leadership Forum at Yale University in the United States, Obasanjo stated that the country's pervasive corruption and various forms of misconduct confirmed that Nigeria is failing under President Bola Tinubu's administration. Mr. Onanuga also pointed out the irony of Obasanjo using a Chinua Achebe lecture platform to criticize the nation and its government, especially since Achebe himself rejected the national honor awarded to him in 2004 by the Obasanjo administration. Additionally, the presidency challenged Obasanjo's critique of the Independent National Electoral Commission, accusing him of hypocrisy due to his administration's alleged involvement in organizing what was described as the, quote, most fraudulent election held in Nigeria since 1960, unquote. Now, joining us in the studio for this conversation are TV host, columnist Sam Omashe, alongside with lawyer and political analyst Adedotun Ajulo. Mr. Sam.
Good morning.
Big Sam.
Good morning. Good morning.
Right. Let me start off with political analyst Adedotun Ajulo. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Now, looking at, I don't want to call it outburst, but the criticism coming from the old generals, I love to call him, former President Olusegun Obasanjo. He described Nigeria as a failed state under President Tinubu's administration. To what extent do you agree with this characterization?
Nobody, and I'm happy that Nigerians go to the street out there. I'm happy that Nigerians, day by day, are getting to know who President Obasanjo is. And they are taking up for it. This question, take it into the market. Even the Nigerians who are complaining, who think the economy is very terrible for them. I've had so many interviews I've had from people in the street. Whatever Obasanjo must have, ex-President Obasanjo must have come up to say is highly condemnable. One, look at the forum where such was even said. We are talking about a former president of this country who had the best opportunity to give us the best of INEC. Don't forget that this man came in 1999 when our democracy was very fresh. That was a period where templates will have been set. And, you know, we cannot forget the 2007 election in a hurry. And the subsequent election that even produced President Yar'Adua. A man you supported in an election came up to tell the whole world that I know the election that brought me in was not free and fair. That was the man President Obasanjo supported. It's very unfortunate that at the age of former President Obasanjo, we have to get to this point whereby he needs to be reminded of what is antecedent when as a president in this country. We will not forget in a hurry. I can tell you that the ununiformity we have in governorship election, as far as Nigeria is concerned today, was all orchestrated by the administration of ex-President Olusegun Obasanjo. That's why today you have a different date for election in Ondo State, a governorship election in Ondo State. You have another date for governorship election in Edo State, and the rest of it, until the era of President Goodluck Jonathan. That was when our court, our judiciary was able to put its feet on the ground to checkmate some of these activities of ex-President Obasanjo. Who is the man we are talking about? The man that, what comes to your mind when you are talking about the antecedent of Obasanjo is how this man single-handedly think he could elongate. How he was bidding for his third term. That is the person going to the war to embarrass non-Nigerians, I will say himself. We are talking about a member of Council of State in the country. And look at, it is more of an embarrassment to President Obasanjo with all due sense of respect
right.
that Nigeria is said. So the question you have asked me I can tell you that going into the street, going into the marketplaces in Nigeria, you can readily have your answers.
All right, Mr. Ajulo, hang on. Let's bring in Sam Omache, for his own opening, statements. Obasanjo has a history of criticizing his successors, from Aradua to Jonathan and now to Tinubu. Is this a sign of genuine statesmanship or an unwillingness to let go of political relevance?
Your history is very, very short about Obasanjo's capacity for mischief against the Nigerian of states. This started since he left office in the 1970s. So he has criticized everybody that has been a president in this country. The only person he did not criticize was Yar'Adua until he became sick and he knew that he wanted to replace him with Jonathan. That was all.
And he made a phone call.
Yes, I made a phone call, remember. You see, Obasanjo is a Pharisee. He is a man which, unfortunately, we have to discuss him because this is what he wants. He wants attention. An octogenarian who is afraid of silence. He doesn't want to stay in his own cubicle so that people will say, nobody mind you are. So he wants to be a public desperado who will always bang his shoes so everybody will say, I am here. Even as Chidinma has won has become runner-up, he probably will want to be the one beside her there so that they will know that Obasanjo is still around. But the most interesting thing about it is his hypocrisy. Goes around calling himself as if he has a righteous toga around him. This kind of person that Paul condemned when he said, thou art inexcusable, O man that judgest. That you judge other people, and thou art guilty of the same. And when you judge other people, Romans chapter 2 verse 1, is when you judge other people, you condemn yourself. That's what he did. That's what he did. You see, when he came out with all kinds of statements. And everything he criticized the government on. He was guilty. He came with all kinds of epithets. He used the expression chaos, insecurity, conflict, discord, division, disunity, depression, youth restiveness, confusion, violence, and underdevelopment. If we take them one by one, he was guilty of all of them. That's why when Paul said, he said, when you judge others, that condemns thyself. Chaos. What government was more chaotic than that of Obasanjo? Obasanjo, when he was president, when he organized elections, we just had election in Ondo. Yeah. Did you hear of anybody dying? No. We had election in Edo. Did anybody die? No. In Obasanjo's election, the grave was guaranteed to have a new customer in Obasanjo's home. He came with the expression, do or die. He said it here in Lagos. And to start with, when Baba Tunde Raji Fashola won the election, his first election in 2007, it was one of the first elections whose results were ready. That time they were announcing results in Abuja. They were only announcing them in the states where they took place. They held on to Fashola's victory for about 24 hours. Why? Because Obasanjo wanted to upturn it. He consulted his security people. One of them is Nuhu Ribadu, who he consulted. Nuhu Ribadu is alive today. It was Nuhu Ribadu who told Obasanjo, if you upturn Fashola's election, there's going to be trouble in Lagos. You better concede and let him go and challenge the facts. These are facts that people know in the security. Obasanjo ran an irresponsible government. That is chaos.
I would want you to, be soft with some of the words.
No. The word irresponsible is a general language.
I'm just saying.
I know.
I'm not saying you should.
Insecurity. Before we talk about, until on the level of chaos, This person referred to it.
I guess on Zoom, Dr. Ajula. I mean, Mr.
No,
Ajula.
Nanuga.
Right, okay.
Remember what happened in Ngege's time when Ngege was governor? He single-handedly removed him from office. Everybody knows that. And that was the reason. This same Achebe, that's why I say it's really hypocrisy for those people who organized the Achebe lecture to bring Obasanjo to come and talk about it, because Achebe himself condemned Obasanjo's regime because of his handling of politics and governance in his home state of Anambra.
All right, let's quickly put you on hold and just get Mr. Ajula to react to what you've mentioned in the studio.
No, but there are lists of them. I'll come to all of them one by one.
We'll get back to you on that. We have a lot of time on the show today. So, Mr. Ajula, I'd like you to quickly react to what he has said. I mean, the president the former president may have experienced some difficulties while he was, ruling the country. But does this mean the president is not open to criticism, or he is unfit to give advice for one who is recognized globally?
Well, you see, what we need to know is that, of course, we are talking about democracy. And I can tell you that one of the things that make democracy to be what it is criticism. But from the antecedent of Obasanjo, ex-president Obasanjo, his own is not criticism. There is this deliberate attempt on his side, on his part rather, to always want to ridicule the country he has benefited so much from. Mr. Sam Obasanjo has mentioned everything. Everything Obasanjo said in that so-called test on lecture were things Obasanjo is more guilty of. I can tell you that from 1990 date, there is no president in this country that has been guilty of high-handedness, meddlesomeness in governance like ex-president Olusegun Obasanjo. In fact, I must tell you that I'm rather taken aback, and I'm rather taken aback, and I'm more disappointed, even in the reaction that came from the presidency. They will have matched him with more fat to fat. For everything Obasanjo complained about, this man was talking down on the judiciary. For everything Obasanjo spoke about in that so-called lecture, I can, at the tip of my finger, you can make references, you can make instances of 10 incidents. The issue of Fayoshi of Ekiti is it very fresh in our memory. The one of Darie is it very fresh in our memory. Is it the man that gave an order that went to level a whole community in Benue State or thereabout, OD community? So it's so unfortunate that I've been wondering on how we can make somebody to be more responsible for such inactions, such injustice done by Obasanjo against this country. I can tell you that the level of violence, the level of election malpractices we witnessed under President Olusegun Obasanjo, put it together from 2015 down to this time, is not up to 1/10 of what was expressed under President Olusegun Obasanjo. It is as easy as declaring somebody who did not even contest in an election to declare he or she for an elected position. And you see, this man we are talking about spares no one, even his biological children. When it comes to try to undermine the country, try to undermine anybody. So it's very, very unfortunate. Before this time, I had to go through that so-called lecture again. And it was a big pain in my marrow that how will an ex-president, you are going to tell the whole world that we have not even moved forward against what is the reality. And I'm not too comfortable with even the response from the presidency. The media team could have done a lot more by marching west for west. There are instances you can create almost immediately, and 10 instances for each of the issues he accused the presidency. He combined both the presidency of ex-President Buhari and the incumbent Tinubu. So I'm not too satisfied with the manner of response that even came up from the presidency. So please, like Mr. said, it's soft. Like I've mentioned earlier on, go to the streets. These emergency activists, the Obasanjo is, go to the street, go to our market women, and ask them for their remark in response to what Obasanjo called the lecture that he went ahead to deliver. You have only gone there. That is very unnationalistic of an ex-president.
Right.
There is no person who will have had an elected position, even down to a local government chairman, that should go and do that kind of injustice.
All right, Mr.
Against our unborn children. You are making it look to the world as if there is nothing happening in Nigeria. Democracy is far better under Obasanjo's successors in government. Talk of President Goodluck Jonathan, talk of Yar'Adua, talk of ex-President Buhari, and even the incumbents, even the current dispensation.
All right, Mr. Ajulo. Mr. Ajulo, I understand that you would love to also do more, but unfortunately, you were not part of the new appointees of the president, you know, in making some of those communications.
But honestly, I wish the media team of the presidency can do better.
Right. So let me just bring it to the studio to sound. All right, let me bring it to the studio. We'll come back to you very quickly. But, you know, it does appear that there's a whole lot of things that the former president, you know, didn't get right. But there was a whole lot that he also got right. For instance, if you look at his contribution to peacekeeping and conflict resolution in the Darfur region, the Democratic Republic of Congo, he also advocated for African development. He also did the Pension Reform Act of 2004, where he introduced contributory pension scheme, which we all benefit from today, ensuring a more sustainable system of Nigeria's workers and all of that. Also reform of the power sector, initiated national integrated power project to boost electricity generation, and you know the list go on. Even the privatization, he championed it.
It's a very interesting fact you are bringing about, because they always say that when you want to bring out a fruit or a tree, you discover that it's out of rottenness. That some good can come. Some good can come out of rottenness. You know. That is a fact, and you have to accept that. But let us take them one by one. Let's start with power. It spends $16 billion on power. Today, we cannot see where he put those $16 billion, because one of the reasons that we're having shutdowns are partly because of antiquated equipment, that infrastructure that have been there for 40-some years, that have not been touched, some of them over 100 years, you know, in our power infrastructure. Yeah. So if he said he was going to do that, it's good, it was a good idea, but what do you have to show for it? It's just like what Shakespeare said. He said, they have put on my head a fruitless crown. A crown that has no fruit. I mean, you were there in the office, but what did you do with it? So if you want to say that I did something for power, where is the legacy? We can't see it. When he did privatization, you know, privatization is a good idea. What did he do with privatization? He did privatization. What he did was to sell Nigeria's valuable things. Even I'm not going to mention them. It's interesting that we have not heard much from his vice president Atiku, because they were in it together. When they were
part of the privatization was the NITEL and the PHCN privatization thing.
That was that too. What about Elijah Steel? Was it not privatization? He wanted to even privatize the refinery. What Elijah Steel, Ajakuta, all of those things they did. They were going into privatization, giving it to private hands, and they sold them for nothing.
Is that a hyperbole? You know, when you say you sold them for
no, what I mean is an hyperbole. When I say they sold them for money, I don't have the actual figures. You can go into the actual figures. It's almost as if you buy a car for 50 million and you sell it for $5,000 for $2,000. It's like that. So what is it? No, I'm trying to take your points one by one. He also tried to privatize so many things in government. He said, okay, no, houses should legislators should now get all their houses. That has created more problem for cost of governance. Because what should have happened is that when a legislator comes, there's a place for you to stay. Obasanjo asked them to buy everything, and then we have to give them humongous allowances in order to become lawmakers. You can go on and on and on. What he did in Darfur is what anybody can do. It's very easy for you to be a righteous man from outside. Be a righteous man inside. What did you do with our judiciary? He mentioned it. I wrote a book, 40 Days and 40 Nights, about Lalong. When he spent 40 days and 40 nights in Lagos here, in detention, just because he wanted to follow the rule of law, and Obasanjo wanted to take about 5 or 6 people to in the wee hours of the day in order to impeach a governor. So
we can go on and on about.
So Obasanjo has no moral right. I think the most important thing is for him to, when you organize a lecture like that, what you need to do first, before you organize the lecture, you have to find out whether the person has the credentialist temperament to do that lecture. Because Achebe will scream in his grave to have an Obasanjo to stand and give a lecture over his own platform. He wouldn't have done. 2, he should have taken time to say, okay, this is what is wrong with the Asiwaju administration. The economy, security, finance, take them one by one. Did you see any rigor? It was just a lecture as Rabu Rouser.
Right. So we could go on and on about what he could have done right, what he could have done wrong. Of course, as with other governments, there is no perfect government. We can still say, we even point to this administration. Some persons still do not agree with what this government is doing. But how do we address the issue of this there's this level of disconnect with the past government and the next government? Most times you see the current government pointing fingers at the past government. And then for the situation that we are having, we see past government also laying blames on what they could have done better. How do we address this disconnect, this lack of continuity?
It's a very good point you made. Obasanjo has been accused, I don't know if you know it, they call it PhD. They use it to him. And I don't know whether he has gotten his PhD yet. He needs to get a PhD. PhD for Obasanjo here means pull him down syndrome. They've accused Obasanjo of that for a long time, since the late 1980s. They've been accusing him of what they call PhD, pull him down. They're always pulling everybody down because he wants to be the one there. He pulled down Awolowo, he pulled down Babangida, he pulled down Yaradua Buhari. Who did he not pull down? He always in fact, there was one which was very famous when he said, SAP, that we need SAP with human face. Then Ikobu said, yes, don't worry, we'll give them human leg and human hand, and because he always wanted to get to bring people down. He didn't only do that. He even did that in his military career when he wrote his book, My Command, which was rubbished by the book by a counter from Alabi Sama. Every other general was a bad general. Every other commander was a bad commander. Only Obasanjo was the hero of the Civil War. And he was not even there when the war was concluded. And according to one record by, I've forgotten this, one time he went to the battlefield, they gave him bullets in his buttocks. It's written. I interviewed the man, this man is in the battle, I think he's dead now. So everybody was bad. So every general, everybody reacted that Obasanjo's book was an ego trip. It was a farrago of lies. That's what he did. Now,
not even my watch. Not even my watch.
My watch was also attacked for all its distortions and so on. So, I mean, Obasanjo has been watched for a long time. So he wants to give the impression that he's watching. Now, talking about that, what did Asiwaju say about Buhari? He was not ready to follow Obasanjo's path of trying to attack my predecessor. He might have his strength, he might have his weakness, but he says, I took this job. I applied for this job.
Campaign for it.
I campaigned for it. I'm not going to apologize, and I'm not going to complain, and I'm going to do this job. Obasanjo is cut from a different cloth from that.
And he said he should not be pitied.
He should not be pitied. Obasanjo's own is that I'm a holy man. I've been holy from the beginning of time, and I'll be holy till the end of time. I am God sent to do. They used to call him Baba that time, because when he was president, anything happened, anything happened, he said, oh, he will point to God. He will point to God.
All right.
You are rubbishing. He wanted top 10. They bribed lawmakers 50 million naira. You know what 50 million? If it's today, it's about 500 million naira, if not more. Each lawmaker were bribed under his watch.
But the plan
and
was
then he
actually
came out,
settled.
and he came out and he said, when the thing failed, they all took their money. I know of the father of one senator who said his daughter did not receive the 15. He said she doesn't know. The man is dead now. He said she doesn't know anything about politics. You collect the money and vote against him. That's what the man said. He just said the voter should have done that.
All right, Mr. Adetun Ajulo, let me come to you. But one of the things that we need to look at, in our governance is, I've hardly seen any president who took the price of fuel, petrol price from who met it at one point and left it at a lower price that they met it. For instance, if you look at the person in question, Obasanjo, who took office in 1999, petrol price was 11 naira per litre, and he left it at 75 naira per litre, which is 580% increase. But if you look at the current administration, I don't want to bog us with too much details, with other administration. If you look at the current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he met the petrol price at 195 naira, and is currently hovering at 617. That's 216%, which is even lower than that of Obasanjo's. What do you think is responsible for this? Even during Aradua, it was met at a figure, and then it was, even though it came down, it also yo-yoed back, to a higher price. Why do you think there has been this continuity of incremental increase, incremental price of petrol?
Well, I think we answered that by saying the economy reality of not just Nigeria, but the world at large. Either you like it, at least we met our parents telling us days, years, you buy Peugeot 504 for as low as 12,000 naira. But in reality, can you maintain that same strength of figure for another 10 years? So this issue of fuel increment by government as a communal. So I think it's just about the reality of the economy. And again, the only reason why we are finding this very, very ashy as a country currently is because there is no government that has been very bold enough to take the step that the current administration is taking. I love your analysis. You just open my eyes to the fact that the increment by this administration, when you compare it to that of the first Obasanjo did, we are talking of about 200 and something percent, while that of Obasanjo is 500 and something percent. But of course, the hunger, the cry under this administration is far, 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 far more than any preceding government or any form of increment. But the truth of the matter is, there is no way as a country we will have continued on the path we are going. It was like buying our future. It was like cutting parts of what we are meant to use in surviving in the future to survive now, whereby we are all carrying pregnancy. So what I think is responsible for that is nothing but economic reality across the globe. Is the standard. What this current dispensation have done or has done differently is that bold step to say, come, we can't continue this way. We can't be carrying a child in our womb and we are taking what is even meant for our children to survive now. So this current dispensation was able to look at it straight in the face and say, come, let us start it now. In a matter of time, I believe and I hope that we will begin to see the benefit of what is being salvaged right now. So it's the economic reality across the globe and nothing more.
All right, thank you for that, Adedotun. Let's come back to the studio. How do you react to, he also called for the sack of the INEC chairman? Also a review at the federal, state and local government levels. I mean, this is coming at a time where there are also calls to sort of ensure that our electoral system is more electronic, especially when you compare it to the American election that we just had.
It is a follow-up for what he did. Remember we were talking about chaos, insecurity, depression, all those things, violence that I was talking about. During the last election, after the result, what did he say? He was calling for Occupy Nigeria. He said that Buhari should stymie or stop the process of transition of the election. That's what he said. This was a man who had an INEC chief called Iwu. People started calling him Iwururu. Because of what happened under Iwu and under his
watch.
His watch. You should have explained all of that in my watch. In the elections under him, what did the INEC do? INEC was not an electoral body. It was a selection body under him. That even as he himself said, that after he left office and handed it over to Umar Yar'Adua, Umar Yar'Adua had to confess that his own election was quote unquote flawed. And that is why he set up a body to, under ways, to review our electoral system.
What about the annulment of elections in Anambra State during increasing Gay's tenure?
That's what I said earlier. That he did not only do it, he did it in a gangster fashion. When a sitting governor was corralled into a room. You imagine that? In a democracy? Obasanjo, what you people must understand is that Obasanjo has not outlived his military temperament and his military training. There's usually a conversion. We have histories of people who have converted.
General Yakubu Gowon.
General Yakubu Gowon, who has converted. But we can say, okay, General Yakubu Gowon did not even operate in a democracy. We can say that. But we have people in history, even the U.S. At one time, all the presidents in the U.S. were from military background. Is it Eisenhower? Is it Kennedy? Is it Nixon? They all had military background. It was when they got to the time of probably Nixon and Clinton that we started seeing people who didn't have military background. But they've come to live under the supremacy of this rule of law and the supremacy of the Constitution. That is all the whole idea of the military. The United States was headed by George Washington. George Washington was a soldier. And he was collectively picked. He didn't want to be the president of the United States. Other people were hustling for it, like one of the richest man there in America wanted to be the president, wanted to play some kind of plutocracy. But everybody said, this man is going to be our leader. And you know what? He was a president for one term. They wanted him to be king. He said, no, I won't be king. They wanted him to be there for life. He said, no. And I won't serve more than 4 years before he left. So Obasanjo has not outlived his military temperament. He still has a barracks mentality. And so that's the psychology of beneath all of this that is happening. Yeah, but what really concerns me is that when you have a lecture like this, you should interrogate the policies of the government using data, using philosophy. We have not been having that. We have not been having that a lot, especially on social media.
Even benchmarking against your own government.
Yes, like what you said about the history of fuel hikes. What is that? Has anybody, did it take time to analyze Asiwaju's policy? When the man says, I got into office and we had 30 trillion, at least 30 trillion, the figures are saying it's more than that now, 30 trillion in debt, where Nigeria was just printing money, especially under Buhari.
Okay.
And he said 97% was used for the current expenditure. In other words, we only had 3% to do anything we wanted to. In other words, we had to print. And this man, in spite of all he did, Obasanjo, when he was in office, 2 years ago, he said, we are printing money. The government is printing money to pay its bills. We thought it was all politics, but it has not been revealed now.
We really have to, go. But before we, call it a wrap, Mr. Ajulo, very quickly, it's quite interesting. What would you advise the old general to do, especially people like him, people of his ilk? We have General Yakubu Gowon, who oftentimes, election in, election out, we always see him championing the peace accord, ensuring that Nigeria gets better in an electioneering and all of those. What would you advise him to do, in making public statements or not policy statement, but in writing letters, because he's very, adept at that?
I think it's too late to advise President Obasanjo. And I'm scared that his survival, his existence is quite tied to him. His existence is tied to him, his survival. President Obasanjo's survival is tied to this criticism, this very, and don't forget something, I need to mention this. With all sense of modesty, I think we should be able to consider him as being inconsistent and unstable. And somebody who acts so much on impulse. Don't forget, you see, as we are talking, we recall so many instances. This is the same man.
We would love for you to land on your thought very quickly. We have just less than 50 seconds.
This is the same man. We should just note that there is not. It's late to advise President Obasanjo, and I can tell you that, as it is, it appears his existence as survivor is tied to this style of criticism. And Nigeria should not forget the instability, the inconsistency, and the impulse manner in which he acts.
Right.
We will recall quickly. This same man was the one that went before the open public to chair a card of
okay. We have to go. We have to go, unfortunately, because of our time.
We can't be advising President Obasanjo, please.
But certainly, you can advise, and it's just left for the advisee to take the advice, so to speak. Thank you so much for talking to us.
I by saying that Obasanjo is just an impresario of the absurd.
Impresario. Well, I won't go to the absurd, but then impresario. It's quite good. That's a compliment anyway. Lawyer and political.
That's a compliment.
Well, I just took impresario. Is a compliment.
Impresario is neutral. Come to you.
But I'm not going to the absurd.
Is about.
All right, political analyst Adetun Ajulo, thank you so much for your time. He is also a lawyer, and TV host and columnist Sam Omasye. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.